Motorola Edge 30 Ultra has a super fast processor, nice looking screen, clean software and super fast charging. But is this phone the best flagship phone for the money in 2022? Let's find out. Hi, my name is Etasham and welcome to my channel. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please consider doing so. And this video is not sponsored by anybody. I paid for my own money for this phone, so all the views are completely mine. Let's start discussing the value proposition first. Mid-spec version of this phone with 12 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage cost around £750 in UK, making it more affordable than the iPhone's base model and Samsung's S22 base model. S22 base model starts at £769 and iPhone's base model starts at £849. Both of these phones are more expensive than Edge 30 Ultra despite having less RAM and storage. Edge 30 Ultra actually shares more similarities with the Pro version of these phones and each of which somewhat are more expensive. So Edge 30 Ultra, in my opinion, is excellent value for the money. The phone is comfortable to hold because of its rounded edges, which fits nicely in the fold of your palm and prevents any sharp edges from digging in. The device measures 161.8 mm tall, 73.5 mm wide and 8.4 mm in thickness, and it weighs roughly around 198.5 grams, which is reasonable given most smartphones weight around or just over 200 grams. The top of the Gorilla Glass 5 front panel has a slit cut out for the earpiece, which serves as both earpiece and a second speaker that faces only forward. Then there's a punch hole selfie camera below that, which appears rather small. The rear panel is also made of Gorilla Glass 5, but it has a different finish. It has an anti-glare treatment, which makes it significantly less likely to detect fingerprints. The downside of this frosted surface that is quite slippery, but most of us will likely to have a case on this device. Speaking of the case, this phone comes with a clear silicone case in a box, which is a nice touch from Motorola. The other color available in this phone is a Starlight. In the middle of the back glass there is a Moto logo, and on the top left there is a camera module, which is neither very big nor on the smaller side. Looks decent in my opinion. In terms of ports, there is only a USB-C port available. Our phone doesn't have 3.5 mm headphone jack, which won't come as a surprise to anyone, as almost none of the today's high-end smartphone have this audio port other than Sony, and I think some ROG Asus gaming phones does have 3.5 mm headphone jack. The fingerprint scanner is built into the display, and power button and volume rocker are both located on the right edge of the device. While I found both of these controlled to be easily accessible, but some users with smaller hands may find the volume rocker to be located a little too high on the edge. Then of course there is a SIM tray at the bottom of the phone. The screen on the device measures 6.67 inches and has a resolution of 1080 by 2400 pixels, making it full HD plus display. The majority of smartphones have a display with this resolution, although there are a few high-end models that have a higher resolution. The curved OLED panel, which has been given the name Endless Edge Display by Motorola of course, has a 20:9 aspect ratio and have 394 pixel density. With slightly higher resolution display would have been much better, but that's what we got. The Edge 30 Ultra outperforms its rivals in at least one aspect of its display capabilities, and that is the refresh rate. This display supports 144 Hz of refresh rate, which is completely awesome. You need to personally experience this, and I think it's one of the best displays when it comes to gaming. While most of the non-gaming alternative are more or less capped at 120 Hz, combined with a powerful processor, which makes the phone great for top-end mobile games. But you'll also notice the extra smooth motion when scrolling in other apps. The Edge 30 Ultra has 3 refresh rate settings: auto, 60 Hz and 144 Hz. The phone is simply set to static 60 Hz or 144 Hz frequency when these modes has been selected. But in auto mode, refresh rate alternates between 120, 90 and 60 Hz depending on what is shown on the screen or how you are using the phone. In gaming, to achieve the highest refresh rate, you need to select 144 Hz mode instead of auto, because in auto mode it is capped at 120 Hz. According to Motorola, the maximum brightness is 1250 nits, and from what I can tell, this is for the brighter or white areas while watching HDR content. With the adaptive toggle enabled and phone used under a direct sunlight, I was able to achieve a maximum brightness of 1051 nits, which is excellent, and screen is easily readable under the bright sunlight. If you are manually adjusting the brightness indoors, the peak brightness is around 500 nits, which is not bad for indoor use. Color reproduction in the default saturated setting is not perfect, even though default mode does offer a wide color gamut, but whites on this mode has a slight blue shift, which can obviously be adjusted in the settings to more towards the warmer tones, but it's still not perfect in my opinion. There is also a natural mode which is well tuned for sRGB content. In my opinion, this mode is more color accurate, but you get less saturation in this mode. Stereo speaker system on this phone, they works quite well. The output quality of this phone is satisfactory, though it doesn't stand out particularly exceptional in any way, but it has nice vocals, clear treble and a little bit of bass makes this phone good enough for media consumption and gaming. Now let's talk about the big numbers. The first one, of course, is the 200 megapixel camera on this phone. You may wonder, is 200 megapixel too much for a smartphone camera? And you would be entirely correct. Given the Edge 30 Ultra is the first phone to use this camera, it makes sense that Motorola is using this feature as a major selling point, but it doesn't add much to the photography experience. I'll explain later down the video. The primary camera utilizes the 200 megapixel Samsung's HP1 sensor. The lens of this sensor is stabilized and has 23 mm equivalent focal length and has an aperture of f1.9. It is one of the largest smartphone sensor available in the market in 2022, but keep in mind it is cramped by a lot of pixels. By default, images captured are not 200 megapixel. Instead, the phone uses a technology or technique known as a pixel binning, in which the sensor's pixels are combined to create larger ones. The sensor employs 16:1 binning and produces 12.5 megapixel images. When I say that the 200 megapixel camera doesn't add much to the experience, what I mean is that the photos taken with it aren't noticeably superior to those taken with competing smartphones. However, this does not mean that I believe the camera is to be subpar in any way, other than in darker situations. If you prefer, you can take 200 megapixel images or raw images, but these options will quickly consume your storage space and you will need to be in very well lit area with an extra steady hands or tripod to make sharp images in this mode. These 200 megapixel images have a lot of details and can easily be cropped in if required to do so without losing much details, but keep in mind they need to be taken properly and they need to be sharp if you want to crop in and get the desired image. Only use this 200 megapixel mode if you require to crop in significantly, and 2x telephoto camera is not good enough to give you the required reach. Let's talk about the ultra wide camera now. It is again a Samsung's JN1 sensor, which is a 50 megapixel sensor. This sensor uses 4:1 binning technique. The lens has an aperture of f2.2 and it has a focal length equivalent to 44 mm. The most important aspect of this camera is, I think, that it can focus autofocus quite well, so which enables you to take close-up pictures or macro photos. There is also a 12 megapixel 2x telephoto camera, which Motorola are also calling a portrait camera. The lens on this camera has a focal length of 50 mm and have an aperture of f1.6. Now this camera is only 12 megapixel, so if you crop in on the images taken by this camera, they will not be very sharp. So instead of that, if they have given you 50 megapixel or 100 megapixel camera with 2x zoom, it would have been really great after implying 2x zoom. And if you wanted a more reach, there was always an option to crop in. But with 12 megapixel images, I don't think so. You have a lot of leeway to crop into the images. When it comes to portraits, they are taken by this telephoto camera, and they look quite decent, and they are comparable to other flagships. I will be doing an in-depth camera review of this phone in which I will explore all the different modes, including Pro mode, and will compare it with other flagships. So if you're interested, please consider subscribing. So the 60 megapixel selfie camera on the front also is based on OmniVision OV60A sensor. The lens has a fixed focal length of 23 mm and has an aperture of f2.2. This camera takes a decent 50 megapixel selfies using 4:1 pixel binning. This camera can also take raw pictures, raw selfies, which will be 60 megapixels, but you don't normally need to crop into the selfies, so save your storage space and stick with the 15 megapixel. When it comes to video, the main camera can record up to 8K video 30 frames per second, but the telephoto and the ultra wide camera can only record in 1080p. All modes except 8K are stabilized. 8K, I think, in my opinion, in new smartphones is kind of a gimmick, because most of the times the phone can't stabilize this footage, and it's not as sharp as it has been taken on proper professional 8K video cameras. 4K footage from this phone has nice color depth, contrast, and it's pleasing to the eye. Other two cameras on the phone, as I said before, can only record in 1080p. 1080p is quite good, but not as sharp as 4K footage. I hope in future firmware update Motorola will add the option to shoot 4K video with the ultra wide and telephoto camera. Because the chipset is capable of doing so, the cameras, they have enough pixels to record 4K footage. Actually, the ultra wide camera is capable of recording 8K footage because it is a 50 megapixel camera. So I don't really understand why Motorola is limiting this option, but I hope in future update we will get a 4K video recording option from these two cameras. Low light recording capabilities in any mode with any camera is just okay, nothing special. Considering the size of the main sensor and the number of pixels it has, it is quite obvious that these pixels are very small, and there is a lot of processing and downsampling is going on to capture 4K footage. Also, smaller the size of the pixels, less the amount of light they can capture, and it really shows while capturing videos in low light situations. As for the other camera modes, there are usual slow motion, video panorama, night mode. Yeah, they're available. As I said before, I will cover all of these in depth in my proper camera review of this phone. This phone has top of the line specs in many categories, and one of them is 125 watt charging speed, and this really works great. The phone charges from empty to full in well under half an hour, and from 0 to 50% in just under 10 minutes. Icing on the cake is that it comes with 125 watt super fast charger in the box. Considering the power this charger can provide, this is a small charger. Only this charger you need to charge everything: your phone, your laptop, and if you got an electric car. Just joking. Fast charging can make the phone warm to the touch, so it is better to take the phone off charging as soon as it is fully charged. Even though there is a battery protection toggle in the setting, but still don't leave it on charge overnight using 125 watt charger. It may damage the battery over time. Also, with such a quick charging capabilities, only 10-50 minutes of charging can provide all day battery life. Phone has 4610 milliamps of battery, which does easily last a full day with medium to heavy use if you leave the refresh rate on auto mode. But if constant 144 Hz refresh rate has been selected, then battery life may suffer a little bit. but there is always an option of quickly charge this phone with the 125 watt charger. The wireless charging, the phone supports 50 watts of wireless charging, which is just like kind of hilarious. It's faster than Apple's and Samsung's wired charging, so that's great as well. So if you have a wireless power mat that is compatible, this charges the phone in less than an hour. The phone is equipped with the Qualcomm latest Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 chipset, which is the most powerful processor available for use in Android smartphones as late 2022. This chip is very capable of recording high resolution videos and capturing pixel dense pictures. During the course of my testing, I spent a significant amount of time testing a wide variety of games, and the phone delivered an outstanding performance. Nothing concerning to report when it comes to call quality. It is excellent. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity is also very stable on this phone, so all good in these departments. The H30 Ultra runs stock Android, which is great, and big part of it is its customization. The H30 Ultra lets you change home screen icons, shape, user interface color schemes. User experience is kind of very similar to Google Pixel phones. To access quick settings and a list of notifications, swipe down from the top. To access your entire app drawer, swipe up from the bottom. Overall user experience is very good on this phone in my opinion. Okay, now let's talk about a few cons of this phone, and you should be aware of these things before buying this phone. So first off, that is H30 Ultra has only IP52 dust and water resistant certification, which means that accidental spills, splashes or light rain should not be a problem, but you cannot submerge this phone in water. So if you like spending time on the beach or take your phone to the pool regularly, you should think twice before buying this phone. My second concern is that the camera performance in low light situation. I don't understand why Motorola choose to join megapixel race. Lesser 12, 24 or even 50 megapixel main camera sensor with a larger pixels would have done much better than this 200 megapixel sensor, especially in low lights. Mirrorless cameras, which has many times bigger sensor size than these smartphones, on average has 24 to 50 megapixel, even though they can cram many more pixels on their larger sensors. But to achieve better low light performance and capture high dynamic range, they choose to have less but larger pixels. In my opinion, Motorola H30 is a great value for money and one of the best smartphones in late 2020. Performance is excellent while performing day-to-day tasks like making call, browsing through social media apps or navigating YouTube videos. Also, it doesn't disappoint when it comes to intensive tasks like playing AAA mobile games, and gameplay is super smooth on 144 Hz screen. It has a good battery life with crazy fast charging, and the charger does come in a box, so you don't have to spend an extra to buy a super fast charger. So if you are looking for a solid all-rounder well below £1,000 or dollar mark, then this phone is for you. If you are in a market for Samsung S22 Plus or iPhone 14 Plus, I will definitely go for H30 Ultra, as it is definitely a better package. But if the money is not an issue for you, then iPhone 14 Pro or Z Fold, they are better phones with better cameras and proper water and dust resistance. Please feel free to share your opinion about this phone in comments. Thanks a lot for your time, and I will see you soon in the next video. Take care.